we have today Nebil Ben Aissa, a serial successful entrepreneur and an investor. Nabil, basically, his expertise ranges from cloud computing and e-commerce to the online payment space. Welcome, Nabil. In addition to being present in Doha, Qpay has presence in Chicago, New York, New Delhi, and Dubai. What additional values does those market offer?
Okay, so I can answer you that question with a different also introduction, and then that simplifies things later. When you're in the software industry, and I've been in the software industry for at least 20 years or more, it's similar to manufacturing. If you're manufacturing cars, you do not want to have a production line where you're manufacturing cars only for 8 hours and then everybody says goodbye, good night, and then you shut down your manufacturing line. It's just not efficient, especially if you're a serious manufacturing company. If you're automotive or any type of serious manufacturing. In the software industry is the same thing. Having been in the software business, having I would say 18 to 24-hour software development cycle on a daily basis with quality assurance is definitely something that's what everybody now is doing. To do so, I'm involved in a company in India that does software development. So we do the development in Chicago, where I live and my kids go to school, and this is my home now. And I've been in Chicago for 15 years. Well, I've been in the U.S. for 25 years, but Chicago 15 years. So my main operation is in Chicago, but then we also have operations in India and then we develop software around the clock. Right now we're on an 18-hour software development cycle. So we develop software for about 8 hours in the US and about 10 hours in India. That includes software development and quality assurance. And now the presence in Qatar is because we've Qpay. We also have clients right now in Dubai, thus the presence in Dubai, and we're about to open operations in Bahrain. And then very, very soon, depending on regulations and licenses, etc., we'll open operations in Saudi Arabia, and then try to grow in the GCC, which is the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, which is Arab countries, but they have oil.
Yeah, sure.
So that's what we're doing.
What do you see the future of e-payments in the Middle East?
Let me answer that question by first generally sharing with you the future of e-payments on an international level, and then we'll focus more on the Middle East specifically. So on the international level, my view is humans are humans are humans. So let me explain what that means. As we speak right now, we have people, a sixth of this planet using Facebook. Facebook is easy to use, is easy to learn, and the value proposition to people is high because it connects you with other people. Thus, it's being it's being used everywhere, and it's ubiquitous. Skype, for example, I'm talking to you on Skype as we speak, is being used by the poorest person in India, and it could be being used by the richest billionaire in Silicon Valley. So when you have simple to use technology that implements easily and it's quickly to grow, humans will use it no matter what country they're in. So electronic payments are here to stay. So checks are gone. I mean, when was the last time you used a check to buy anything? Cash is starting to dwindle, and cash is sticking around only in like micro payments. But if you're doing $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 transactions, most of that is becoming electronic, and that electronic transaction is moving down now, especially in the U.S., where people could walk to a Starbucks and pay electronically for a cup of coffee for $1.95.
Yeah.
So the trends are going into electronic payments. Now, Middle East, there's some resistance, mostly by governments, by regulators, and all that stuff. Because when you talk about electronic payments, now you're getting also involved in remittances, because electronic payments and remittances go hand in hand. There are some big issues in the Middle East with money laundering, and so there's it's pretty tight right now to get something up and running in the electronic payments space. However, like I was saying earlier, humans are humans are humans. The technology is going to happen. It's going to move there. There's going to be some pushback, but eventually electronic payments will be ubiquitous everywhere in the world, as well as the Middle East.
So, do you think that the low electronic payment penetration in the Middle East is affecting or slowing down startups and entrepreneurs in the region?
Absolutely, absolutely. So let me share with you a simple example. Take a guy who's an expert on electronic payments, who worked for Visa for 20 years or 15 years, or somebody who's got so much experience and knowledge. Give him some cash and let him start an electronic payment. You take a person, you have him in Silicon Valley. I'm sure, with the right people, with the right things, with the right intellectual property, that could be successful, right? Good idea, good cash, good management, and you get yourself something. You take that same person, you put him in the Middle East, and his chances or her chances are go down way low for a simple reason, because of the regulation. So anytime you touch money, anytime you do any type of thing with money, then you're going to get regulators on your back. Currently, the problem in the Middle East that I see is, like I was saying, moving money, doing any type of remittance, doing any type of electronic payments. Governments are very, very scared from certain things. PayPal, right? They started in India. They got shut down in 2010, and they're still trying to get back in the mix in India, which is a billion-person market, and they still can't get it. Once the governments get in, it becomes hard. However, the opportunity is pretty big for incumbents. The existing banks who already have the licenses, already have technology departments, et cetera, to innovate. So it's kind of interesting. What you see, the innovation right now in the Middle East is coming from the large, old companies, and it's not being pushed by the young startups who want to go out and try new things. Unlike the U.S., where usually innovation and technology comes from the younger, hungrier startups versus the older, stodgier companies are a little slow to introduce new technology. So it's interesting how the market is different. But at the end game is going to be the same end game. Electronic payments are here to stay, that's for sure.
Yeah. So can you share some numbers about the e-payment space in the Arab region? Number of transaction, the volume of monthly transaction, any numbers you have?
Oh, I have a lot of numbers. I've been studying the market for the last, I'd say, 18 months, very seriously in the last 24 months, when I kind of started the idea with my partner, Sheikh, et cetera. So I could say 90% of transactions right now in the Middle East are credit card, debit card based. Interestingly, debit card transactions are much higher than credit cards. It's more like an 80 to 20. Why? Because in the U.S., credit is bigger or as big as debit, because the U.S. has a pretty good credit bureau system. So, when somebody says, hey, give me a credit, the creditor knows everything about you. Based on your social security number, they can track everything. They know how much money you make, how many houses you have or not have, cars, loans, etc. In the Middle East, they're starting this process, but it doesn't exist. That's why credit is very low and debit is much higher on the transactions. Electronic payments, now it's done with NFC, which is near field communication with a little device. I would say it's less than 1%. E-commerce, total e-commerce transactions throughout the whole Middle East is somewhere between, I think it's like 2.3 billion to 4 billion, to 3.9 billion, and that was based on a Visa research that they produced in 2011. Interestingly, 19% of all e-commerce is happening in Dubai and in UAE. Everybody, okay, Saudi Arabia, because they're much bigger, then the e-commerce is going to happen from Saudi Arabia. Actually, most of the e-commerce is happening from UAE. Bahrain is actually the second one, although Bahrain is tiny compared to the other countries. And then you've got Saudi Arabia, and then Kuwait, and then Qatar. So e-commerce is starting to happen for various reasons. Why? Mainly because of security issues and transaction processors not being comfortable transacting in an open environment on credit cards. So there's a lot more restrictions. So there's all kind of different things, but it all leads to a single direction, which is it just could get better from here. I mean, it is definitely, when you compare to Western countries, it's much lower, but the direction of e-payments is positive. But like I was saying, the best way to get something going in the Middle East relating to e-payments is to partner with an existing large player, or resolve all the licensing issues up front with the local governments before you make your investments. Otherwise, you'll just sit around, just spin your wheels, and not be able to get anything going.
Mm-hmm. Let's jump to the social commerce or e-commerce. Zaristo is a social commerce platform and now live in India. What do you think of the Indian market, and why did you attack it first? Why did you attack the Indian market?
So just a little bit of Zaristo and what it is. You know, like I said, Zaristo means thank you in Greek. I met a Greek person a long time ago, and I learned that Zaristo means thank you. So I said, you know what, let me, you know, I was typing it on GoDaddy, and I was like, oh yeah, Zaristo.com is open. So I took it. I took it with a Z, I took it with an X. Actually, it's an X. It starts with an X. It's actually Xaristo. But people say Zaristo anyway. So that's and it was a name with no concept. And then once I got the concept, I said, oh, we'll just give it the name. You mentioned, you know, e-commerce or social commerce, and there's, you know, and it's not or, it's actually totally two different games. And let me kind of explain to you, I'll give you a simple example to kind of explain the difference between e-commerce and social commerce. So let me take you back, let's say 10 or 15 years ago, where you and I needed to read about the news. What we did is we went to CNN.com, or if we wanted some technology news, we went to CNET.com, or, you know, these news websites, and or AOL, and we sat there and we went out and we looked for the news. We went out and fetched the news from the internet. Now, fast forward 10, 15 years from then, which is right now, where you are surrounded with friends from, let's say, home. You're surrounded with friends, like from back home. So, like, I have Tunisian friends because I grew up in Tunisia. I have business friends in Chicago. I'm a member of Young President Organization, so I have a lot of president CEOs who are friends that I'm friends with. I am also a member of some organizations in Qatar, investors, as well as, you know, technology, entrepreneurship, etc. So suddenly, because of all these different pieces of networks or groups that I belong to, I can sit back when I log into Facebook and I get that Facebook feed. I get all these different news which are surrounding me. So suddenly now I'm sitting there and I'm reading about news that happened in the swimming pool that I grew up and swam in when I was 9 years old, and about, you know, a wedding of one of my friends when I was 12 years old, and then one of my other friends who's, you know, when I was in the U.S. as a college student, and then some of the latest technologies relating to taxation in the United States for entrepreneurs and business owners. So suddenly the news is coming to me versus me going out and typing and searching for news, okay? So I'm going to use this example of the news, how content now is surrounding me versus me going out and searching for content. I don't know if you remember back in let's say when first the internet started, you know, you have people say, I'm going to surf the web. Or, you know, this person is addicted. He sits and surfs the web for 2 hours. And what that is you're going out aimlessly looking for information. You just kind of get lost. Now, if I sit down with my 13-year-old son and say, hey, are you surfing the web? He looked at me, he's like, what are you talking about? So he's sitting right there and he's got content coming to him. He doesn't have to surf anything. So e-commerce is going through the same direction, I believe. And that's why you've got guys like me who make bets. I believe e-commerce is going in that direction. There's no more, I think, of me going out and looking for a product here or there. Now, there's the fundamental products. You know, I got to get shaving cream and whatever, hairspray, or, you know, shoes, pants, socks. But there's some, you know, additional products that now, instead of me going out and searching for them, suddenly they start popping up. Interesting now, when I go on Facebook, I'm starting to get all these ads on the side, which are really cool. You know, like, you know, there's some, you know, good things that I'm looking for or I would be buying. And suddenly e-commerce is surrounding me. So with the Zaristo concept, is this something very similar? What we're trying to say, look, let's now leverage your social network of friends to create an e-commerce transaction that is either sponsored by your friends, wished by your friends, where your friends now go out and find deals and say, hey, Nibal, I know that you like, let's say, you know, I know that you like sushi, so here's a really good sushi deal because I know you like sushi. But for my other friend who I know who's vegetarian, I'm not going to forward to him a sushi deal because I know he's more vegetarian, or he doesn't, you know, wear suits or doesn't wear ties. You know, then I'm not going to. So what I'm trying to say, I mean, I'm using that as a very simple example. But what I'm saying is now e-commerce is going to start being pushed by the people around you versus you going out and searching for e-commerce.
Why did you attack the Indian market first?
Well, okay, very good question. So because of the infrastructure I was telling you I have in India and in the Middle East and in Chicago, I just did not want to be on timeout with a new concept early on in the United States. And I believe the Indian market is young. The Indian market is a little bit chaotic. The Indian market is just, you know, undefined. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to test the technology, spank it around, make sure it's solid, make sure it works, make sure the transactions are good, make sure that the integration of our technology with social commerce is done very well in a different country first. And then once I bring it to the US, then I can bring it very nice and solid and operating versus kind of using the US as my guinea pig. I'd rather use a different country as my guinea pig because the US is such a big market, such a developed market, and I cannot, you know, be on time out here. So I cannot screw something up and you know, technically lose an opportunity to enter the US market. So that's the only idea behind it. Plus, you know, interestingly enough, the Indian market is 1 billion people, of which 200 million are internet users. And the second largest Facebook market in the world after the US is not UK, it's not Germany, it's not some Western country, it's India. You know, our technology runs on top of Facebook and other social networks. So that's why we wanted to test it there, make sure it works, and then bring it back. And then at the same time, see if we can build a business model over there as well.
How do you think the mobile will reshape the future of e-commerce?
Mobile is you know, the story behind mobile is crazy. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I'll give you a very simple example of India. India 15 years ago, all of India, like, well, 15 now, 96, 97. Now, India has 1 billion people, 1.1 billion people, right? They had only 1 million cell phone users, mobile phone users, okay? So somebody looking at the market is like, oh, 1 million users total. What, you know, what this is not a market, right? Fast forward 15 years, and now India has 900 million mobile phone users. So, you know, that type of growth tells you that mobile is here to stay. Now, they have called the feature phone, which is the type of phones where you have to, you know, triple click A 3 times and, you know, 1 3 times to get A and B and, you know, all that stuff. But now they're moving into smartphone technology, which is, you know, the Androids and Blackberries. You know, Apple products are a little expensive for the Indian market, but Android is definitely taken off pretty fast there, also in Asia. But the interesting thing now, which is just huge for entrepreneurs and technology folks, is that now you've got this market who's going to have now, and I think India right now is about 25 million smart sets. But a lot of people are now switching their you know, feature phones, the 1, 2, 3 phone, into these smartphones, and that growth is unbelievable right now. But here's the interesting thing. The interesting thing now is if you're a software developer, suddenly you're going to have a market of people who. So for India, let me give you a very simple example. Then I'll get back to my point. So in India, people went from no TV, okay. No telephone. Like in the West, people went from black and white TV, color TV, cable, then, you know, cable internet, and all these steps, and then got to the internet. So this is how it kind of happened in the US. In India, people went from no TV to a mobile phone. No cable, no home phone, right? Boom, to mobile phone. So they have these big leaps. So now when you take that person who's got a feature phone, which is a phone that has 1, 2, 3, and then you can, you know, you have to text, you have to do all that, into like say an Android, a cheap Android, sub $100, sub $50 Android phone. Suddenly, that person, that phone is their first computing product. So in the US, people went from desktop to a laptop to iPad plus phone. So you got all these different steps. And now you've got people in India going from no computing, no computer, no desktop, no iPad, no nothing, to boom, to a mobile phone. So now when you write applications, so think about applications. Very simple example, you know, you're writing an application, you know, let's say you're government and you're writing something for people to pay their bills. Well, you don't even need to write software for a web interface. You just go directly into a mobile phone, because that's the only computing product that human has, which is that smartphone. So I see a huge opportunity, definitely a huge opportunity in mobile, especially for these growing markets where it's not like, should we develop this application in web or in Flash, or in blah, blah, blah. And by the way, let's also develop for mobile. And in some of these countries, that's the only way for you to get that electronic product in their hand or that electronic application in their hand, which is developed straight into mobile.
Yeah. And let's zoom in a little bit about on Zaristo. How do you spend your marketing budget, and on what should startups really spend their marketing money? Where do you find the most ROI from different marketing schemes or practices?
Well, in the Xaristo case, we don't spend any marketing money. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's a social commerce application. So social commerce. So think of you asking Mark Zuckerberg when he first started Facebook and said, "Hey, by the way, are you spending money on, let's say, advertising on newspaper to get people to use Facebook?" And the answer is, wait, it's a social commerce, it's a social product or social network. So it's word of mouth. It's one person to another, and that's how it grows. So in our case, with Zaristo, what we're doing is we're building it so it's actually socially growing, not necessarily any marketing. But if we might spend a little bit of money on top of Facebook or other social networks to just kind of create a little bit of curiosity within the network to say, hey, check this out, click here, and then of course when you click, you got to pay Facebook 25 cents or whatever it is that you have to pay them. To kind of broadcast, to get the word out. But technically, we do not have a marketing strategy. Now, to answer your question about where should startups spend their marketing money, my answer to you is they should not spend any marketing money. As an entrepreneur, spend all your money building your concept first. Build the concept, build the technology, get your first client. Your first money should not be spent on marketing. If you raise money from investors, do not spend a penny of it on marketing. Go build your business, close as many clients as possible. Don't spend much money on marketing. Don't act like you're a big company and try to waste money on building brand and trying to look so cool and try to compete with the big companies that have been in business for 35 years just on the brand and the marketing and try to get, waste your money on that. Waste your money on building the product, enhancing the value proposition, making clients spend money on your product. And that's where most of your money should be spent. And we're doing the same thing with both Zaristo and Qpay. We're not trying to, spend a lot of money or anything. We might go to a trade show here or there to kind of create some initial, relationships in the marketplace. But we're definitely not, it's not wise to spend a bunch of money on marketing at an early stage of your company.
Yeah. So let's jump to cloud computing. We all know that cloud computing is the future. So what business opportunities do you see there?
Well, interestingly, when I sold my last business, I joined Accenture as a senior executive in their cloud computing practice. So I kind of know the stuff like the back of my hand. So there's different flavors of cloud computing. So everybody now takes a computer or a server and says, okay, it's the cloud. Well, you could always bend truths and do different things. But cloud computing, at the end of the day, what you're saying is, the concept of a data center goes away. So there's no data center, there's no servers and hardware and database and storage servers to manage, etc. What you do is you outsource all that to a cloud computing provider like Amazon or Google, or some of the big providers or the mid-sized providers. So technically, the whole idea of cloud is to outsource the whole data center to somebody else. Now you've got cloud computing where you have software as a service, and that's where you develop an application, and your clients pay you a per user, per fee, whatever it is. That's software as a service. It's a fancy word for ASP, application service provider. That was kind of hot in the 90s, and then before that it was called a service bureau, where technically you're saying, you know what, I'm going to give you access to the system. You could use it as much as you want, but you pay me per usage. So that's kind of so Hotmail is or Gmail is actually a software as a service, except you don't pay for it, where your email is not sitting on your computer, sitting on somebody else's machine. And then you've got platform as a service, and that's the interesting thing for a lot of the entrepreneurs. And we're using the same thing, where you actually use somebody else's platform. So it's not you're just outsourcing the hardware. So it's kind of you're not managing the hardware. You don't even manage the hardware. You don't even know anything about the hardware. All you do is you write your software on top of a platform, and then you compile it to whatever it is, and you push a button and it's live. And so you've got Google Apps where you can actually develop applications on top of Google Apps. You've got Amazon Web Services, AWS. They have also data storage called Remote Data Services, RDS. So there's a lot of things happening on that world where you don't even have to worry about hardware. I've made a decision after I sold my last share in American EPAY to move away from any type of data center, just because, you know, some bad experiences we had with our own data centers and our servers going down and not having the right Cisco set up, and one server goes down, it takes other servers down, and then you got clients who, because we were running payroll, so suddenly we've got clients with 10, 50, 15,000 employees not being able to pay their employees. Their employees are calling and screaming at them. They're screaming at us, you know, how come I cannot run my payroll? And that's because our servers were down for whatever reason. You know, the network was down, the database servers were locked. You know, the network person could not be available. You know, he's got an emergency, one of his kids in the hospital. So now you take all that away and then you outsource to somebody else. So cloud computing is here to stay, and it used to be something that entrepreneurs did, and now it's actually starting to grow within large organizations. So you'll see a lot of large organizations moving in that direction as well.
We have a software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service. Where do you see the Arab entrepreneurs can attack to in order to compete in the cloud computing space? Do you see them attacking the software as a service or platform or infrastructure in order to win or build something great?
Okay, so I don't look at Arabs as Arabs. You know, Arabs they're not humans with special powers or less powers than Western countries. To be honest, I mean, you know, just that it's just a community for whatever reason. So the way I see it, you know, I'm Arab. I speak fluent English. So does that make me any different than the guy next door? But here's my direction that I see. Software as a service is technically you using a multi-million-dollar infrastructure or system, but you're only paying per user, okay? A very good example of software as a service, if you're familiar with it, is QuickBooks. Yeah. So instead of you building your own accounting system and buying, you know, Oracle financials and, you know, or SAP and all the stuff, as a small business, you can just pay $20 per seat or per user managing the system, and limited per employee. And then suddenly, you know, it's up to 10,000 employees, you can pay $20 a month to have a pretty good accounting system. So that's software as a service. So I see software as a service growing much better in the small business marketplace, in the Arab small business marketplace as well. Larger companies might want, you know, when you're a large company and you're doing $1 billion in revenues, well, you know, you want something a lot more sophisticated, and for you to spend $10, $20 million on an SAP system, or even $100 million on an SAP system over 50, you know, whatever, 10 years is no big deal, because you need to run a multi-billion-dollar operation. And that's where you see those bigger companies going with their own solution versus a software as a service. Platform as a service is a good software development environment. So entrepreneurs who want to get things up and running quickly, who are developers and don't have the data center, don't have, you know, the money up front they need to pay, and they don't have the Cisco router certified network engineers, they'll go into the platform as a service. Infrastructure as a service, which is technically now you're getting all those servers and the database servers and everything, and now you're saying, I just want that infrastructure. So let's say if you have a data center, it's called a cage. So technically you get a cage or X number of servers and you can manage everything. That's going to be, I see that happening on the mid to large size businesses. So again, to recap, startups, software as a service. Small businesses, software as a service. Mid to large companies, they can outsource infrastructure as a service when they get, you know, 100 servers with all the trimmings and all the different things that they want, and they don't have to have it in-house. They can just outsource it to a cloud computing infrastructure service provider.
What's your advice for Arab startups that want to go global? When should they do it? Where and how?
Interestingly, if you can be up and running in an Arab country, you automatically, so just, you know, speaking as a geek, as a technologist, for you to go live in an Arab country, that means you have to support you have to support it in the Arabic language as well as the English language. From ASCII characters, you have to support double byte. Me coming from an old software development school, but if you can support double byte, technically you can support Chinese. So if you can build it where somebody clicks and sees the website in Arabic, and then they click and they can see the website in English, and you can put a little bit of effort where you made your website dictionary based. Dictionary based means you don't hard code, good morning or ahlan wa sahlan. What you do is you just say, okay, look into this dictionary. If the language is Arabic, display this message. If the language is English, display this message. If the language is Chinese, then display this other message. So now what you could do is you can support 100 messages. Now, step number one of internationalization is being able to support the local, language, or so making it local to that local country. It's called the locale, which is French for local. So having locale support. So what I'm saying is by being an Arab technology, or let's say web service product, you already have that advantage. Interestingly enough, as well as if you are successful, let's say Jordan, you can easily take it to, let's say, I don't know, next door to Turkey. No, not next door, couple next doors. Take it to Turkey, which is a different language. So I see that happening. But again, you've got all these little countries that are small, and so not trying to get over the who's going to distribute, who's going to represent you in that specific country. How are you going to recognize the revenue if people start using paying you services in that other country? How do you make that happen? So now you've got the payment process, you got the gateway in place, you got to have multi-currency issues. These are some of the things that we're going through right now with Zaristo. So if you can get those out of the way, I think it makes sense. So fundamentally, it makes sense. Making sure that the concept actually goes across multiple countries and multiple cultures is the last step that an entrepreneur needs to think about, is how do I localize my idea or product to this local market. But technology-wise, I see it as a shoe-in from day one.
Yeah. Speaking about the US market, how do you think Arab startups should attack it and enter it?
So you're saying like a company in Jordan, for example,
yeah,
or in Dubai trying to attack the US market?
Yes.
It's a little tough for two reasons. One is you have to have operations here, you have to have people here, you have to have feet on the street here, so that you at least you understand the culture, the usability, the market trends, the demographics, who you're going after. Because they're definitely, if you're sitting in Jordan building something, trying to bring it here, I think the chances are it's a little hard. Now, however, finding a partner who, let's say, is in the United States, who established in the United States and says, this is what I want, 1, 2, 3, 4. So technically, it's more of an outsourcing model of saying, okay, build this for me, and then maybe, I take it live and we'll share revenues, etc. Then I see a much lower risk in that. So from a startup perspective, look, the rate of startups dying is very, very high. So startups equal risk, and that's why not that many people do startups. Now you add extra risk to that risk, which is trying to build something from overseas into the US, then I think it's risky unless you've got feet in the street here. Yeah. So if you have a really cool idea, which you believe is going to work in the US, don't waste your time trying to get it up and running in the US. You can, of course, you can, things happen and miracles happen, right? But it makes more sense to find a good partner, somebody that you could trust. Make sure your intellectual property is very well covered. Having your operation in the let's say overseas in the Middle East, run the system. So if things don't go your way, you can just shut it down or have some leverage is the way to do it. But once you give up your technology and everything is running in the US, then suddenly you become obsolete. So my thinking is, keep the technology, use a platform as a service to build it, find the right partner, and go at this thing with somebody instead of trying to guess on your own remotely what works and what doesn't work in the US. Plus, you got to remember there's a lot of competition in the US, lots of competition. Everybody wants to go live in the US. So make sure you do your homework and before you try to go live here.
Yeah. So when should startups go globally in a startup life cycle? When should they go globally? Do you see a specific time in a startup life cycle that startups should think about going globally or not?
Okay, so me being an old timer, there's a book, and any startup person needs to read this book, and it's called Crossing the Chasm. Yeah. And Crossing the Chasm is an interesting book that was written in the late 80s, like 87 or 88. Yes, that's right. I read it for the first time, maybe 91, 92, and it really kind of opens your mind. So let me give you like a quick overview, and I'm sorry, I don't want to make this long, but the idea was this: they did some study, and they found these companies who raised hundreds of millions of dollars in venture fund. They were backed by Intel. They were so successful. They were prodigies, big time. And everybody, when they looked at them initially, they said, these companies are going to just kill it. And, well, interestingly, 3-4 years later, these companies went out of business. And they have these other companies who people looked at it and like, oh, you're just a loser, and they didn't have enough funding and they had issues. But then eventually they just became huge. And one of the examples was Intuit. And Intuit is, the one that makes QuickBooks, which is the third largest software company in the world, believe it or not. Although, a lot of people don't hear about them. Everybody hears about Oracle and Microsoft and this and that. Well, they're number 3. And so the question was, how did these companies who had a bad future ended up becoming huge monopolists of their marketplace versus these other ones who were prodigies and had hundreds of millions of dollars and were backed by Intel, etc., didn't make it? And the answer was, when this guy looked into these various, 100 different companies, he found out these companies actually stuck to a very specific process of going after very specific verticals or very specific groups of people, and they went after, these specific markets. And then they went from the early adopters all the way to so they went from the guys, within these companies who were so excited about new technology to the CFO who are a lot more tamed down and a lot more pragmatic. So they went through the full cycle of owning a little town, one little town at a time, and then attacking China versus trying to go attack China from day one. Because what I found out is to attack China and go international from day one, you're going to spend so much money and still you're not going to be able to break the wall of China. But these little companies who went out and they attacked little cities and little towns and grew little by little and created momentum, eventually were able to attack China. So to answer your question is, at what stage does a startup go international? My answer is don't go international. Because if the word startup and international should not work. Now, some guys like me who've got infrastructure and capability and done their math and have the funds and the capital, whatever it is, to do something like that, fine. Because to me, honestly, I'm not going international with Zaristo. I'm just going local where my software development folks are building software, so I can make my developers close to the client and develop a much better quality product, and then I bring it to the US, which is local to me. But I'm not going after Togo or South Africa when I don't have any representation. So the answer, to answer your question after this long answer is just don't go international. Just survive, get on your feet, make money, make it happen first, and then go to college. Then take your baby to college and go to the next level.
Yeah. So, wearing your investor hat, in 1 minute, what factors do you take into consideration when evaluating a business?
I think I have it on my LinkedIn site. I think I have 4, but I'll try to remember them right now. 1, you have to have a good concept. You can't have a crappy concept. So you have to have a good concept. That's number 1. Number 2, you have to have a good management team. And I know this sounds very cliche, but you have to have a good management team to be able to get that concept going. So good concept, good management team. And number 3 is intellectual property. You have to have protected or protectable intellectual property, because today, with all this tech and all the software developers and everything, if you have a cool idea, I could hire 3 guys over 2 months and I could replicate anything you're doing from a technology perspective. So you want to have a little bit of protection on your intellectual property. And then you have to have a growth strategy. You have to have, the concept, which is the value proposition, people are willing to pay money for it, good management, intellectual property that you can cover, and number three is you have to have a growth strategy, which is distribution. You have to have ability. Wouldn't it be great to do this, which is a really cool idea? It doesn't work anymore. You have to have a distribution model. You have to have that idea growing in a much faster way than just going out and wasting a lot of money trying to explain the concept to every person. Yeah. So to me, those are the four fundamental pieces: concept management, intellectual property, and distribution or a growth strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. So what tips do you have for startups looking to get funded?
So there's two ways to get funded. One, to go out to an investor and say, hey, I got this great PowerPoint concept. I think it will work. I don't have it live. I don't have any clients. It's a great concept, and please give me money. And and you might get lucky, and that person's like, wow, I love your concept. But most likely that person is going to because they're going to take a lot of risk on this venture that you have, which is only a PowerPoint concept. It's only on paper. And when that is the case, most likely what's going to happen is, as an entrepreneur, you're going to end up working for somebody else because that person's going to come in, they're going to take a big chunk of your business, they're going to give you a crappy term sheet, and maybe you could do that initially to kind of build and stand up on your feet and then go to the next level. And I had to go through that, where I ended up working for, so I start a company where I own 100%, and by the time I exit, I'm at 7%. That's because, I started with concepts, and I did not have something in place that was actually up and running, etc. However, I've also been on the other side where the business is up and running. I'm revenue, cash flow positive, so I'm making money, I'm profitable, and now you got people who are sitting there saying, please, for the love of God, let me invest in your company. I'll do anything. And that's where you set the terms, and then you get much more favorable. Where it's more of a, now you're working for yourself, and also you're helping some other people make money. It's very hard to judge. You can come to somebody and say, hey, this is the right way or this is the bad way. My only advice to people is, remember, if you don't have anything up and running, then most likely you will be working for somebody else, and you will be the lower hand. So if you have the funds, if you have some money, do everything you can to get that business up and running, create revenue, establish yourself so that you have more choices than just a single investor, and then you can set your terms. But if you can't, well, do what you have to do. But that's my general advice to a young startup person.
Yeah. So at the end, what tips and pointers would you like to give Arab entrepreneurs?
I can tell you this: if you're smart and if you're good in tech, I'm a tech startup guy, so I could tell you one thing which is kind of interesting. Look at the Western market, okay? And to me, you see these movies, or when I was a kid, we had we had these cartoons about the crystal ball, where if you could just have that crystal ball and you could look at the crystal ball and know what the future is, then based on that future you can come back and change some things, and then suddenly you become really rich. Well, guess what? You do have a crystal ball, which is the Western markets. Now, yes, there are some regulatory issues. There are all kinds of different issues that hinders the markets from going there. But you do have you do have a crystal ball, which is what's happening. So, example of PayPal. Well, right now I'm just so deep in whatever I'm doing. But hey, why not come up with an Arab version of a PayPal, right? Why not? That also passes certain regulations, etc. And now you're working hand in hand with governments. And there's tons of money to be made there. E-commerce, why not come up, like you were saying, with the next Amazon? But the next Amazon is not about technology. It's about how are you going to create a delivery system where you can deliver those things on on time. You want to target, let's say, the housewives, because a lot of the housewives don't. Some of them will like to shop, some of them want to stay home. But so if delivery is cheap, and you got Aramex, which could deliver, coming up with an Amazon model that makes sense is a good idea. But some of these ideas are expensive. Some of these ideas are they're easy to make. Why not come up with an Amazon in your little town? It doesn't have to be Amazon across the whole Arab market. Amazon for Amman or whatever, some kind of city. Yeah. So concepts are there. It's just that make sure that you can come up with these little things and just kind of slow it down a little bit as far as hitting that big, becoming the next Google. Just make sure it's up and running on its feet first, one little city at a time, and then go to the next thing. So my advice is concepts are a dime a dozen. do your homework, look at what's happening in a lot of the Western countries. It will eventually come. You know, there's no questions about it. So it's just a matter of you know, building something, slowing down your expectations, make sure it's up and running, make sure it's going. You know, it's actually profitable and makes cash and it supports your lifestyle and your family style. And then you talk to investors. But you talk to investors when you have nothing. I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah. So that was really inspirational, Nabil. Thank you for your time and thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.